Hello, welcome to this short but very powerful and very practical training on how to grow your audience no matter your stage of business. In this video, I'm going to map out for you the different audiences that we need to grow when growing a business, where to focus your attention. I'm going to walk you through 4 stackable stages of audience growth, and I'm going to push you to get into action really fast. It's one of the things that I do best. So what is it that I mean by audience? Your audience are the people you reach when you share content and offers in your business. That's the kind of audience that I'm talking about. So that might be your social media audience, your mailing list, people who attend your events, leads, and paying clients as well. So your audience is made up of a bunch of different people, and they may find you in different spaces, but what they have in common is that when you share content and offers, they're the people who see it. So one thing I do want us to be cognizant of, though, is that not all audiences are created equal. So you have different audiences and different people in your audience who would be considered warm audience versus cold audience. So your cold audience are people who've never heard of you before. Maybe they don't recognize your name. They've never seen anything of yours before. That's a cold audience. They've found you on a Facebook ad, or they've seen that their friend likes you and follows you on Instagram. And so they're very cold. They have little connection to you. They don't know anything about you. And then we have different stages of warmth in that audience. So it's not just cold versus warm. It's also, there's like a spectrum, right? There's a journey that people go through. So some people are super cold audience, then they might jump on your list, so they're a little warmer. The people who've worked with you as VIP one-to-one clients, they would be your hottest audience, right? Like they know you, they trust you, they've paid you money, they've worked with you before. So that would be a much hotter audience. Now, so we've got this difference on how warm the audience are to you, but a second difference is a niched audience versus an unniched audience. So you could, for example, run an advert on television and get in front of 100,000 people with your TV ad. But those people, depending on which TV program they are watching, aren't necessarily all within your niche, right? They're not all going to be your ideal client. They're not all going to necessarily have a need that you are able to solve with your products and services. So that is considered like a very cold audience, but also it's a very unniched audience. Whereas if you have an audience that you have reached them by sharing a piece of content that helps them to, let's say it helps them to feng shui their office so that it is magnetic to money, right? If that's the piece of content that they all watched, then we know that that audience is a niched audience. So they're likely people who are working from home, people who want to make more money. So we can know a bit about that audience and know that it's specific and niched compared to an audience that you've reached with more broadcast forms of advertising. So you've got audiences that are completely unniched versus audiences that are niched. And the alignment of those audiences to your specific niche can be varying. So again, here's a difference between a niche and unniched audience. If you had a mailing list of 10,000 people that you purchased, please don't ever do this, but that you purchased from someone who sold email addresses, right? And they say, I'll sell you email addresses and I'll give you some demographics. So all of these email addresses are women who earn between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, and they have children, right? So there are services that sell that. Please don't ever buy those email addresses. Like, who wants to receive an email from someone when their email address has been purchased? Not me. But you can see there's some demographic information about that audience, but that audience isn't necessarily niched in the exact area where you're focused. So you've got these 10,000 email addresses of people that you know that they're women and you know they have kids and you know what their income level is, but your service is that you do intuitive readings for women who want to start a business, right? So it's an unniched audience because you don't know whether that audience wants to start a business or not. You don't know whether that audience is open to intuitive work or healing work or psychic work at all. Like you have none of that insight in the important parts of that niche. Versus if you had the opportunity to do a presentation to a Facebook community of 10,000 people who want to start a business. They're in the startup phase of business, right? 10,000 women in a startup Facebook group, right? So your audience, that audience is way more aligned to your niche than the 10,000 email addresses. So there's a difference in that audience based on how niched it is. More niched is going to be more valuable when it's more aligned to your niche versus unniched is less valuable to you. And then there's also a difference in audiences when it's an audience that is your asset, such as your mailing list, right? You actually have that as an asset because people have given you permission to send them an email. They have opted into your mailing list. So you own that mailing list. If you currently have your mailing list hosted on Aweber and you decide I'm going to move all of my business assets over to Kajabi, the email addresses that are within that platform, you have the right to move them over to a new platform, right? So the list of emails is actually your asset. Whereas on social media, for example, the followers that you have on Instagram, if you decide, you know what, I'm not going to be focused on Instagram anymore, I want to move over and focus completely on Facebook. Unfortunately, you can't say, I'm going to move all my followers on Instagram over to be followers on Facebook. That's not your audience. That's not your asset, right? So it's not an asset-based audience that you own. You're on borrowed space. Now, of course, you can try and encourage people to move from your Instagram to your Facebook and tell your audience, hey everyone, I'm actually closing this Instagram account down. I'm focusing everything on Facebook. Make sure that you come and follow me here. And you can go and recruit people to that other borrowed space, but it's still borrowed space. And if that platform, your access to that platform was shut down tomorrow, let's say you got banned off Instagram tomorrow because you accidentally triggered some bot words that decided you needed to have your account closed, then there's not much that you can do about that, right? There is an appeals process, but you don't get access to that audience again until you've resolved that issue. And for some people, they never get access to that audience again. So you can see then an audience that is your asset is going to be more valuable to you and your business versus an audience that's on borrowed space. Yes, the borrowed space audience can become asset business, right? That's what I encourage people to do. Turn your social audience into your mailing list, recruit them onto your mailing list as well so that you are building that asset for your business. But there is a big difference between an audience that's your asset versus an audience that's on borrowed space. So you've got all of these differences. Not all audiences are created equally. Getting in front of 100,000 eyes is different, has different levels of value depending on these other pieces of information about that audience. So you've watched this video because I've said I'm going to help you grow your audience. So if you want to grow your audience, where exactly do you focus? You've got a lot of options. You could grow your reach on social media. You could grow the number of followers you have on social media. So those are two different numbers, right? There's the number of people who follow your Facebook page, and then there's the number of people you can reach on Facebook, right? So you might decide that you want to just grow your reach rather than growing your followers. Or you might decide you want to focus on growing your followers on social media. You could focus on growing your mailing list. You could focus on growing the number of hot leads. You're not even worried about mailing list and followers and reach right now. Your number one focus might be on having people have sales conversations with you. So each of these different audiences that you might focus on require different strategies. And for a lot of people in business, they know about all of these different audiences. So they spend their days jumping from this to this to this to this. I have to do all of it at once, right? And what you end up doing is spreading yourself really thin and not focusing down on strategy that is actually going to create momentum. It's not actually going to get legs. So, if you think about the person spinning all the different plates, right? And you're jumping from spinning this plate, now you're spinning this plate, now you're spinning that plate. And what you're doing is have everything balancing precariously. Instead, if you just focused on the one and kept it spinning, right? And you would know that you're creating momentum with that. You know that that thing is moving ahead. So you have a lot of options, and we can either tend to try and do everything at once, right? And so we spread ourselves thin and never really get any strategy creating any momentum. Or the other thing that I see entrepreneurs do is default to growing their cold reach, right? Every question that I get about audience growth tends to focus on how do I get the algorithm working so that I can get in front of more people? How do I grow my reach on Facebook? How do I get more people following me on Instagram, right? It's always about finding cold people that we want to get in front of. And it makes sense to focus there, right? Of course, that's going to be our default, because I need to find new people who haven't heard of me before and get my content in front of them. If I want to grow my business, I have to grow my reach. I need to go and find new people to get in front of. It makes absolute sense that would be our default area of focus. We believe that new eyes equals new potential buyers, which it does. And so it's a very sexy part of audience growth to focus on. But if we look at those 3 different factors as to what makes an audience more valuable versus less valuable, when you think about growing cold reach, 1, is it warm or cold audiences you're focused on? It's cold. So that is less valuable than a warm audience. You don't know, or there's options when you're growing cold reach for doing it in a niche way versus an unniched way. So it could be niched or it could be very unniched. And number 3, that's on borrowed space. So your cold reach audience are the least likely to stick around. They're the most likely to just disappear and not see posts from you anymore. And they're also the least likely to convert into paying clients. So defaulting our focus to cold reach, whilst it does sort of make sense, isn't the most strategic audience growth for us to focus on. And it can be very easy to get distracted by the hundreds, if not thousands of strategies out there that are being taught for you to be able to grow your cold reach. I'm sure you've purchased or signed up for a bunch of different trainings about cold reach. Yeah, so it's now you should run Facebook ads. Here's how to use hashtags on Instagram. Here's how to create reels, how to use TikTok, how to get followers on Facebook, right? All of those sound like perfectly legitimate, reasonable things you should need to know how to do as a business owner. But they are also focusing you on growing an audience that is the least likely to stick around and the least likely to convert. So when you focus on audience growth, the number 1 audience to focus on is actually growing your mailing list. Why would I tell you, don't worry about cold audience, focus on growing your mailing list? Well, number 1, you own that asset. That is building an asset-based audience, not an audience on borrowed ground. Number 2, it's the most niched. So it's going to be the most valuable to your business. The reason why it's the most niched is in order to get someone on your mailing list, you need to demonstrate a value proposition that's specific to what it is that they want. I don't give my email address out randomly. I only sign up for things with my email address if it's helping me achieve something that's a priority for me right now. And so because of that additional caveat or that requirement, it means that your mailing list is the most niched out of those audiences. Not only that, they're also the warmest. So think about those 3 different factors that determine how valuable an audience is. Cold versus hot. It's hotter, right? It's a warmer audience because they know you, they trust you enough to give you their email address, and they are on your mailing list, so they're going to be hearing from you consistently. You've got the opportunity to nurture that audience. So it's the hottest out of those options, or it's warmer. It's an audience that's niched, and it's an audience you own. Not only that, it's an audience you can nurture, and they're the least likely to disappear. So if I don't open an email from someone for a few weeks, right? Let's say you send me an email every week and I haven't opened it for 3 weeks. When you send me an email on the 4th week, I still get that email in my inbox. Whereas if I have 3 posts from you in my Facebook feed and I do not engage with that content 3 times in a row, the 4th time you post, it's not going to show up in my news feed. So actually, I don't just disappear from you as an audience member, you disappear from me in terms of my feed. So you are not actually going to be able to nurture our relationship anymore because even when you post, I don't see it. So we almost disappear on each other. And in your mailing list, that audience is the least likely to disappear out of non-paying audiences. So these are really powerful reasons to focus on growing your list. Plus, when you get focused down on list growth as your audience growth area, there's overflow into other audience areas. So in growing your list, you actually grow your reach. In growing your list, you grow the followers that you have on your social media platforms. When you grow your list, you grow the leads that you are bringing into your business. It's your job to generate that lead relationship, but they're there. You've got them. So actually, by focusing on list growth, you look after all 3 other areas of audience as well. So if you grow your reach, you don't automatically grow your list. If you grow your followers, you don't automatically grow your list or get leads. If you focus on leads, right, actively generating leads, it's going to be high connection, high conversion strategies. You don't automatically grow your reach. You don't automatically grow your followers because it's so high touch and high need that it's very one-to-one orientated. So by focusing on list growth, it's the only one of the 4 audience areas that automatically grows the others as well. So it's a strategic, smart use of your time and focus. Okay, so now that we know which audience we're focused on growing, how do we grow that audience? There are 4 strategies. 1, organic growth, 1 person at a time. Recruiting 1 person at a time onto your mailing list. 2, organic, but consistently at scale. So inviting a group of people onto your mailing list and doing that consistently. 3, paid and in a short-term focus. And 4, paid but in an ongoing automated focus. Now, you might be hearing me talk about these 4 different ways that you could be bringing people onto your mailing list. And you might decide, well, it sounds to me like organic consistently at scale is the focus, like that would be the sexiest way to do it. That's the best way to do it. Or you might think paid, ongoing, automated is the best way to do it, right? So depending on what stage of business you're at, different strategies for list growth will feel more appealing to you. But actually, these aren't a choose which one of these 4 to focus on. These are stackable. So in actual fact, I don't want you to just choose one of these strategies. I want you to ensure that you have got all of these strategies in place and that you build them one on top of the other. You stack these strategies. You don't stop doing level 1 when you start doing level 2. You don't stop doing level 1 and 2 when you start doing level 3. These need to stack on top of each other to be the most effective. So instead of picking which one, I'm going to walk you through these 4 stages, and I want you to just do a little review of how effectively have you have you got this sorted? Is this nailed? And is there something that needs attention here? And I want you to start from the bottom up, from level 1 and then move to level 4. So if you're already doing level 3 and 4, but you have neglected level 1 and 2 for a very long time, I actually want you to start at level 1 and get that working like clockwork before you then start looking at level 2. And then get that working like clockwork and then look at, okay, now how can I scale up level 3? How can I scale up level 4? Yeah. So the reason why we do this is because organic list growth makes paid list growth cheaper and more effective. Organic one-to-one proves what works so that you can go into organic at scale. And what works organically proves then what can be working at paid. So if you are not doing any organic list growth strategies and everything is paid, then chances are you're paying too much for that list growth. And that list growth is growing your audience with non-ideal, non-focused leads that actually you're probably growing a list of people who don't necessarily open your emails, are quick to opt out, or you're not necessarily getting appropriate open rates, click-through rates, and conversion rates from your list because you're spending money on growing a list that isn't niched enough or isn't far enough along in their journey to be ready to convert. It's not a high conversion list growth strategy if you haven't proven it with organic. So it's always a good idea to come back and review and bed down those organic strategies. It will make your paid strategies far more effective and far more cost effective as well. So let's look at organic one at a time. So when someone reaches out to you, or you get a new lead, or you get a new client, do you actually ask them, are you on my mailing list? Or have you forgotten about that? When you first start your business, you probably have done this. Some people start a business, they never do this. But make sure that you ask, hey, are you on my mailing list? Do you want me to just check and make sure you're on my mailing list? Now, the reason why is because if you have good quality leads and clients on your mailing list, they are the people who are most likely to reply, most likely to engage, most likely to forward it to other people, most likely to give you feedback, most likely to buy the next thing that you're promoting. So you want to make sure that at least these people are getting on your mailing list. And not only that, when you're having a conversation with someone asking, but when people message you, have you had people in the last few months send you a DM and say, oh my gosh, I just found you in this Facebook group and I just wanted to reach out and say, thank you so much. I've followed your Facebook page and I loved your podcast episode that you did about XYZ topic. Do you say to that person, oh, that's so wonderful. Are you also on my mailing list? Right? Like, do you actually encourage people to join your mailing list? When people email you, do you encourage them to join your mailing list? Now, I'm very, very excited and happy and lucky, I guess, that my email platform that I use Kartra for when people email me and also when I email my audience. So because I have that all-in-one platform, if someone emails me, because it goes through the Kartra help desk, Kartra actually tells me, is that person on my list or not? So then my team know exactly who to ensure that they follow up and say, also, by the way, we can see you're not on the mailing list. Would you like us to add you? Or we can see you're not on the mailing list. Would you like us to recommend one of the free trainings that Tash has got so that you can grab a free training and also get on the mailing list for ongoing support and updates? Right? So these are little basic habits that if they're not embedded, you're really losing the opportunity to grow that hot, valuable audience like so quickly. And that snowballs so quickly as well. Similarly, if you go to networking events or conferences, do you have ways that you encourage people to jump on your mailing list? Like, this is the organic one at a time stuff that when it's embedded and it works like clockwork, you don't really even think about it. But this is the stuff of where that person who DMs you turns into a paying client 3 days later. Because when they DM'd you, it wasn't just a lovely, oh, hey, I love your stuff. Your podcast was great. Oh, thanks so much for letting me know. Boom, we're done. Versus, hey, I really love that podcast episode. Oh, thanks so much for letting me know. If you're interested in that, why don't you go and do my free training on this? which then opts them into your mailing list, which then gets them your next newsletter, which then gets them seeing how valuable your work is and thinking about working with you. Maybe they reply to that first newsletter and say, oh my gosh, not only did I love your podcast, but then you followed up with this amazing training. And now I'm just like so in love. I just need to work with you in some way. How can we work together? And that has happened for me multiple times. Those are like the juicy, new, fresh people into your audience that continue to create that short-term cash flow because you got them onto your mailing list nice and quickly. And you were able to nurture that relationship really beautifully. So have a think about organic one at a time. Are there areas where you used to do it but you don't do it anymore? Are there areas where you've never really done it? Are there areas where you could get your team helping you and doing that for you? Have a think about how you can grow your list with that organic one at a time. If that's not working like clockwork, if that's not nailed, focus on that one first before you even dive into the next ones that I'm talking about. Still watch the rest of this video. I'm going to show you and talk you through how to decide, and I'm going to give you a little challenge as well. But if you're listening to this going, oh, I don't do any of that, level 1 is your area of focus based on this video, okay? All right, if you have got that now, that's working like clockwork. Next is organic and consistently at scale. So do you consistently post on social media telling people to be on your mailing list? Do you consistently post on social media promos for your opt-ins and your freebies? Or do you only ever post advice and tips and jump on a call with me on social media? To what extent does your social media content encourage people to join your mailing list? Is there some gaps that need to be filled in here? Yeah. Number 2, on your website, does it have calls to action in multiple spaces that gets people on your mailing list? Your website audience are people who have not only actively come to find you, right? They've clicked on something, they've typed the address in, or they've searched something and found you. So they're a very hot but very unconnected, disconnected audience, right? So they are actively seeking out the type of thing they think that you can provide. So, oh my gosh, sexy audience. Not only that, but also if you've got calls to action that get you onto your mailing list, they're an audience that you can then nurture a relationship with. Don't let them leave the website without being on your mailing list. And by the way that I do that most consistently is having calls to action. So promos of opt-ins, content that has opt-ins, and even just in a couple of spaces saying, hey, by the way, if you're not on my mailing list, make sure that you join in several spaces on my website. So many people build websites and it's buy from me or go away. It's buy from me, read my free content or go away. That's your options. So think about what options do you give people when they come to your website? Number 3, do you consistently create a podcast or a blog, and where relevant, do you promote your freebies, your opt-ins? Do you have a content upgrade that people could sign up for that also pops them on your mailing list? And then number 4, do you guest for others consistently with an opt-in as your call to action? So I consistently go on other people's podcasts and teach in other people's Facebook groups or on their YouTube channels, those sorts of things. By the way, if you'd like me to guest on your platform, do get in touch. Email support@tashcorbin.com. So I regularly do that, and when I do, I give people an option to do something with me, right? So my call to action when I have any guest opportunity is an opt-in. I don't go on other people's podcasts and then say, come and join my takeoff program, because the leap from I just heard about you to here's $2,500, I want to join your program is a big leap. So instead, the call to action is I've got a free training on how to nail your niche. Here's how to go and access that. Or I've got a free training that helps you to fast track your business growth. Here's how to go and access that. Or I've got a free opt-in that's going to help you grow your mailing list. Here's how to go and access that. So what I'm doing is using that opportunity of guesting and getting in front of someone else's audience as focusing down on list growth as my number one audience growth strategy, right? So you can see how this all reflects list growth is my number one audience growth. Number one. If I have the option to grow my reach or grow my list, I grow my list. If I have the option to get some leads or grow my list, I grow my list. Because I know it's the most valuable audience growth to focus on. And for this organic consistently at scale, we want to make sure that this is working like clockwork. Yeah. So this is the area where if you are thinking, oh, maybe I'll do some Facebook ads. I'm not really sure if I'm ready for Facebook ads. Systemize and get your list growth working like clockwork first. Because you can run all the ads in the world, but if people join your list and they never receive a follow-up email from you, then you're just growing your list with a bunch of people who aren't going to do anything further, right? If you are thinking about going out there and doing a bunch of guest posts for people, but you have no freebies that they can opt into, there's no follow-up email sequence to that, then you're just going to be doing a lot of work that doesn't necessarily bring the return on investment. So get your list growth and nurturing working like clockwork, organically and consistently at scale. It is such a non-negotiable, and yet so many people put it at the bottom of their to-do list. So that's my little ranty Tash moment for you there. All right, maybe if you've got organic one-on-one and organic at scale consistently nailed, maybe it's time for you to now start looking at paid list growth. If those things are working on like autopilot organically, then the next scalable stage is to step into paid list growth. So in the short term, for paid list growth, we'd focus on running ads for your live freebies. So maybe you're running a webinar in a month's time. If you've got the organic promo of your webinar down, then invest in some ads to get slightly colder audiences to come to that webinar, or a challenge. If you are releasing a brand new freebie, right? So let's say you've decided to create a new checklist because people ask you for it all the time, and you've already got it organically nailed, right? You've slotted it into your social media posts. You've made it the content upgrade on your next 4 podcast episodes. You are doing a couple of guest slots, and you'll talk about that checklist as your free option for them to jump into. Why not also invest in some ads to get that freebie out to a colder audience? Just for the launch period. I'm not saying to do it forever, but start by experimenting with ads to launch that new freebie. You might have a blog post or a podcast episode that's super high performing. It's like everyone in your audience loves it. They watch it over and over again. What if you put some ads behind getting that out in front of a colder audience? Because that blog or podcast, if you've nailed the organic growth of your list part, has a call to action in it that grows your list. So that can be another great short-term way of growing your list with paid advertising. And then finally, maybe you have no idea how to run Facebook ads and you've joined a 5-day challenge that's going to show you how to run Facebook ads. The number one outcome I want you to focus on if you ever are learning Facebook ads is list growth. Yeah. So if you're doing a course or you're doing a challenge, or you're diving into learning how to do ads, make the ads focus on list growth. Yeah. Use that time to play with and practice ads that grow your list, because then that's an opportunity for you to nurture that relationship. If you learn your ads and you're just focused on promoting a product and you invest $500 in ads but you make 0 sales, but you also haven't got any of those people on your mailing list, then the $500 was basically wasted, because there's no ongoing relationship you can build or potential for you to convert them at a later date because the ads didn't work. So focus, when you're learning ads in particular, focus those ads on list growth. All right. Now, paid, ongoing, automated. So once you've got got ads down to the point where when you're running a webinar, you know how to use ads to fill that webinar. When you are promoting a challenge, you know how to use ads to get people to do that challenge with you. It's time to then start looking at your ongoing automated list growth. So you could put a $5 a day ad to your best opt-in, right? Your best opt-in deserves to consistently have new people jumping into it. Now, when it comes to opt-ins and your mailing list, we do want to ensure that it's doing its job of then generating leads and getting sales. But in terms of audience growth focus, even just getting people onto your list and growing that list audience with a $5 a day Facebook ad to your best opt-in is going to be really juicy. Yeah. And beyond the first few trials of getting people on your list with ongoing automated ads, I recommend you either hire an ads manager to do it for you or get a team member to manage those ongoing ads, right? As the CEO of your business, there comes a time where going in and checking your ads every single day and making those minor tweaks and changes is not the best use of your time. That's an easily outsourced piece of work. So as you start to really scale this up, you then might like to engage a team member to do it or hire an ads manager. I, at the moment, have a team member who's learning Facebook ads and they're using my ads as their learning platform, right? So they're playing with ads on my behalf as a member of my team. And I've had a Facebook ads manager in the past, so we've got a bunch of ads that we know work. So yeah, you can have a mix of things as you go. So you can see there's this beautiful progression, but the important thing here is to remember to stack them. So my Facebook ads manager, when she first started working for me, she said to me, I've never had someone's ads work so effectively from the get-go. And the reason why they work so well is because you nail the organic stuff. Your organic social media presence makes your ads cheap, easy to set up, and effective. So don't stop organic to start paid, stack them. Keep all 4 list growth stages working consistently. Even though I have a multi-6-figure, soon-to-be $1 million business, I have a team of 4 people who work for me. Even though I have Facebook ads that consistently add 1,000 to 2,000 people to my mailing list every single month, I still have my team ensure that anyone who emails us is on the list. I still, whenever someone direct messages me, I ask, are you on my mailing list, right? I still do that to this day because I know that's a hot person and that's someone that I want to be on my mailing list. So don't stop, stack. Yeah. Cool. All right. So that's the end of this beautiful quick training. It's now over to you. Which stages of those 4 have you really nailed? Organic one at a time, organic consistently at scale, paid short-term focus, paid ongoing automated. And I want you to make sure you've sorted each stage before stacking the next. So even if you already have ongoing automated paid list growth happening, if you aren't doing the organic consistently at scale, I want you to book in a meeting with your team within the next week or so for you to talk about how they can help you with this organic consistently at scale list growth. Right? It doesn't necessarily need to be you doing it, especially if you're beyond, putting that time in consistently yourself, but it still should be a core part of your business strategy. So if you need to go back and sort a stage that you've skipped, go back and sort it. That's what I want you to focus on. So take action. I want you to pick the stage that you're going to focus on. I want you to spend a little bit of time brainstorming 10 ways that you could improve your list growth at that stage, and then select 2 of those actions that you are going to do this week. And I want you to come and tell me in direct messages which 2 actions you're going to focus on. So I want you to say, hey Tash, I've done your Grow Your Audience training, and the 2 things I'm going to do this week are A and B. I want you to come and tell me in direct message. So on Facebook, I'm at Tash Corbin Coaching. And on Instagram, I'm at Tash Corbin. And if you do that, I am going to read your message and I am going to reply to your message. And if I can see that there's a bit of value I can add to that, I will. If I have a free resource that will help you with that, I will send you there. So I will help you to really maximize the effectiveness of those two actions. All you need to do is come and tell me what they are. So come on Facebook at Tash Corbin Coaching. Come and send me a direct message on Facebook, or on Instagram at Tash Corbin. Either's fine. But I want you to tell me which two actions you are going to be focused on this week. Thank you so much for joining me for this beautiful free training. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.